So my name's Brannen Wilson, and I live in Massachusetts in the good old USA. Uh, Live in the woods, so been very in my whole life been in rural area, so I've had a very good connection to nature. And my parents were very free flowing people, were into spirituality at a very put me onto it at a young age, which is very, looking back at it, a super blessing to have that in my life, how it set me up for where I was headed, and to be in touch with a part of myself that I think, the world automatically pushes away because we have to interact with it through our intellect, or our ego, monkey mind. We need it to survive here. So I was lucky to have that. There was this other side that maybe school didn't teach me, but they were always like, hey, you can do this. My dad told me I could move things with my mind when I was, 7 years old. I remember sitting there for an hour just trying to move this dinosaur with my mind for the first time. I never moved it, but he got an hour of free time out of it. So good for him. Kept me busy. And yeah, so about 20 years almost ago, I started delving down the path for real. Started meditating, changing the way I looked at things and opening up. And my reality has been very fluid my whole life, because of my upbringing. And started doing lucid dream practices and awareness and mindfulness and all the things we've all probably done. And then things started to click, and I had a spontaneous OBE during one of my lucid dreams. And I was like thinking, this is amazing. I'm in a lucid dream. And then all of a sudden I'm in this like hyper realistic reality where it's more real than here. There's colors that aren't here, all these things. And it made me be like, wow, what was that? It wasn't scary at all because I was already lucid dreaming. So then I delved down that path even more and started trying to get them to happen on my own, and worked on that for years, a couple years of meditating. And then it just started clicking, started having them every night. Sometimes, depending on if I let myself sleep a long time, like naturally wake up, who knows how many people are capable of, you're probably having them all night, but I'll have 8 or 9 in one morning because of the constant wake up. I'm a light sleeper too, which probably helps out. So, and then in 2000, was it 17, Will? I met Will at the Monroe Institute, and we went to an out of body thing with William Buellman. No, sorry, that was not. I went there first. Excuse me. We went to, what was that one, Will? The first one, Guidelines or something. I don't know.
Gateway. It's called Gateway.
Gateway. Thank you. Gateway. So, and then me and Will just connected there, and I was going out of body, so he was like trying to, and me being the right-brained person, I'm trying to describe things to him. So he's asking amazing questions, which Will is great at, breaking down things to get me to at least get to him so he can understand the metaphors that I'm using. But in the process, it also helps me understand everything because I'm a person who doesn't, like I said this to Will today, like, what are directions for? Can't you just wing it? So it's nice to have him to show me what I'm doing, because now I can talk to people about it rather than just be like, I don't know. So now after, 7, 8 years later, we're still working together and making progress and finding new ways to view the old thing that we all can do. So that's me in a nutshell, I guess. So I'll pass it off to Will now.
So yeah, thanks, Brandon. And I guess anybody that's curious about the longer version of my story, I put something. There was a video that was connected to this course that we're doing, so you can watch that. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that because we have a lot of stuff that we really want to get through today, and we already think that we're not going to have enough time to do all the things we want to do. So what I will say is that. Yes, I've been going out of body for, I guess, by the time I met Brannen, I was going out about 3 times a week, but you couldn't tell you how they were. I didn't understand how I was doing it. I was meditating every day, which I had been doing for maybe, like, I don't know, a year or something like that, 6 months or a year. But the thing is that it might be like once on a Wednesday for a minute, and then once for 20 minutes on a Saturday, and then 5 seconds on a Sunday or something like that. And so over the years, eventually, I've gotten it to the point where I can go out of body basically whenever I want to. It usually takes me somewhere around 30 minutes to get fully out there, 30 to 45. But I do it every day, except for now. Whenever I say I go out of body, I usually will be in the same reality frame for like 6 or 7 hours, and so I can get up, I can go over, I'll come back, I'll go into the exact same place, and that's actually been very helpful because it's allowed me to get myself to the point where I can be really awake with my eyes open, and then I can get information to see whether or not I am in the same reality frame, because I know what the reality frame is like. And since they're starkly different from this reality frame, then it allows you to really kind of like kind of push the edges of what you can and can't do. So what Brannen and I basically came to realize over the years is that there's really not very many people that are consistently able to change reality frames. Now, there's a lot of books on changing reality frames, but most of those books are written by people that are fascinated with out of body, and they have some experiences, and then they write those experiences down, which is great, but they don't really understand it. And so I'm not saying that that's everybody all the time, but I think that most of the books that are out there are by people that don't truly understand what they're trying to do and how to do it. And so what Brannen and I are basically bringing is that I am an extremely left brain logical process person, and Brannen is extremely right brained. And so, but we both will go to the same places and do the same things. So we are able to basically give two descriptions of a thing that sound completely different, but are the exact same thing. And for that reason, most of the people here are going to be somewhere their left and right side of their mind and how they operate will be somewhere between Brannen and me. So hopefully, as we describe these things from two different contexts, the same thing, it will help you to really understand what we're talking about. So, that being said, I guess at this point, what today's discussion is going to be about is it's going to be about the being level versus the logical process part of your mind. Okay, so look, the reality is that there is no distinction in your mind, just like there is no distinction in your body between organs. Your organs are just cells. So you can say they're all just cells, or you can say, oh, well, they're individual cells. Well, where does this cell start? This group of cells start, and this group of cells stop. And so we need ways of discussing this. And so what we do is we come up with these things to talk about the separation between them. Is there a separation? Well, yes, there's a separation, and no, there's not a separation. Just like the organs in your bodies, they're all the same thing, but they're all not the same thing, right? And so in doing this, it allows us to kind of discuss the way that you can to frame the ideas of what you're trying to do when you're trying to change reality frames, or whenever you're trying to understand the world from a different perspective, or query information, or just understand yourself better. And so these can be very useful ways of looking at reality if your goal is to basically clear your mind and change reality frames. And so, did you have anything that you wanted to say, or you want me to keep going?
I'll keep going.
Okay, so the way that we are going to that we have come to basically describe this is as if there are two parts of your mind. Now, the way that I like to think about it is kind of like the yin yang symbol. Okay, so you have the being level part of you, which is the timeless soul, whatever you want to call it. There's a part of you that will continue on with a different quality of consciousness from this reality frame when you die, right? And that is the being level. Okay, and then there's another part which is kind of the logical process part of you. Okay, that's the part that basically keeps you alive. Okay, so if there's a if there's a lion that's chasing you in the jungle and you're running away from that lion, that's the part that's running. You know what I mean? Or if somebody makes you mad and you go, I don't have to take that from that person. Well, that part of you, that being level part of you, is a part of you that's trying to protect you in this world. Now, it doesn't always have good strategies. Many times the strategies are bad. You see people, and you're like, why does he drink? He destroyed his life. His family left him. He lost his job. Why is he drinking? He's drinking because that's the logical process, part of his mind's best strategy for dealing with the fear and anxiety that he feels. Is it a good strategy? No, it's not a good strategy. He knows it's not a good strategy. He's not an idiot. But the thing is that a lot of times we get into these situations where we don't know how to deal with something, and then we're like, I don't know what to do. And then there's that part of you that's like, I know what to do. You should do this. And it's a bad idea. Probably the logical process part of you. I like to call that part monkey, because it's kind of like the monkey part of your mind. And so it's always trying to figure things out. It's always trying to control the situation. The whole world was just the way that I want it to be, then everything would be great. That's monkey that's trying to like just basically keep control. And so the thing is that we're kind of brought up in our society to really use this logical process part of our mind, because it's very useful in administration, in setting goals, in tasks, and all of these things that are really appreciated in our society. And so, and the being level is more kind of like, it's kind of fluffy. It's harder to tell what's going on, but we all know it's really important, because that's where things like love happen and all these other kind of things. But it's not something where it's as easy to kind of put it on a board and say, all right, this is blah, 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 blah. This is the being level, and this is the logic process. So just to say that when we're talking today, we'll be talking about logical process, or I will also call it monkey, and we'll also be talking about the being level. Now, what we're really trying to do today is we're really trying to help you to separate between the being level and the logical process part of your mind. So whenever you have thoughts and ideas and, oh, I'm going to do this, or, oh, I'm going to go out of body, or, oh, I'm going to meditate, or when you're meditating and then something comes into your mind, that's the logical process part of your mind that's trying to contribute. Now, the thing is that people talk about the ego, and, oh, the ego is bad for you. Yes, I mean, like, it might seem that way because of the descriptions that I've been giving you, but the reality is that that monkey part of you loves you because it is you. It is not trying to hurt you when it gets you to drink or gets you to do something stupid or gets you to control a situation. It's trying to protect you. It cares about you. It has bad strategies, but it cares about you. So the thing is that whenever you're trying to meditate and you're trying to change reality frames and you close your eyes and you in your mind and you're trying to clear your mind, and then it says, la, 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 I wonder what we should do. Maybe we should have lunch later. This isn't working. It's trying to help you. It wants to be a part. It wants to participate in your going out of body. And so the thing is that it's so strong in its ability to basically control your mind that what ends up happening to most people, most of the time when they're trying to go out of body, is the only time that being level part of you is not basically controlling your entire mind is when you go to sleep. So what people do is they meditate and they meditate. And when do they go out of body? Right before they're about to go to sleep. Then the logical process part of your mind, he has to let go because he can't follow you into sleep, right? Or she. And then boom, there you go out of body. But that's why most people are on the edge of sleep when they're going out of body, is because they can't let that logical process part of their mind go, because it's always there. It's just clamped down on you. So what we're really trying to do, the whole thing, all of the stuff that we're going to be doing, all of the exercises, everything that we're trying to help you with is going to be how to basically get that part of you to sit down and relax and allow the being level part of you to basically just run the show for a while, just be in control, because that's where all of these abilities are. These abilities are intrinsic and fundamental to us as consciousness. You as this is your right as consciousness, is to do consciousness things. And if the consciousness things are change the future probability of somebody by making them heal, or to change or to learn something through another reality frame, that's part of your fundamental like makeup of what you can do. All right. And so it's not something that you have to create, it's who you are. You just have to realize it. And the way to realize it is to get that logical process part of your mind to sit down. Did you have anything you want to say now, Brannen?
Yeah, great explanation there, Will. So, it's kind of interesting too, like Tom's model, right, is like a computer-esque model, right? It's how we're looking at that metaphor. And the intellect is a computer in itself that cannot shut off. It cannot sit back. It's pushy. The being level is not pushy. It just sits back and lets the intellect take over. It's almost like the being level knows that you need to tame your intellect, so it doesn't try to be pushy. So your intellect, because we've been training it wrong our whole lives, or maybe not even wrong, just inefficiently, and letting it run the show. And if it's a computer that's always running, a hard drive that can never stop spinning. It needs to find a problem. It sometimes creates problems just so it can say it solved them. And most of the time, it never even solves the problem. It just solves it to its own capacity of what it believes was right. Now, that means that it might seem better to you, or the intellect, humans are really good at lying to themselves, like really good. We can justify anything to ourselves. So the intellect will justify that this is good. I did the right thing. Everyone else can deal with it. I'm okay. And no problems were solved. Probably more were created. And what does the intellect do right after that? It never, if you guys have noticed in your life, every time we all have problems in things we're dealing with, as soon as that problem ends, there is less than 24 hours, usually like 24 seconds, before a new thing comes in and overtakes your intellect, latches onto that new thing and says, I'm running with it. I'm going. We got a new problem that I have to fix. And then it's bypassing all these other things that are going on in the world around you, which you are a part of. And it decides to tell you that you're the main character in your story, which we all are. And it doesn't allow the truth. The being level just sits back. It doesn't be pushy. That feeling when you get a gut feeling, the term gut feeling. You get this gut feeling. You're like, oh, where'd that come from? As soon as you notice it, what jumps in and tells you, no, that's not it. No, don't do that. No, I know best. I'm going to tell you the best way to do it. And then you go through and you're like, yeah, I'm logically, yep, this is the way. I'm thinking myself through it. And then you do it. And then you realize that the right answer was that first intuitive thing that came to you as your logical process comes in and smacks it out of the way. And the being level just sits back and says, okay, maybe next time I'll be able to have some bandwidth to operate. And just for a quick, sometimes we all need different words just so we can connect with them, right? It's like the meanings, really words are just words. And we can say there's a definition that we all agree upon, but we all use those words very uniquely in our lives. And they mean different things to everybody, even though the definition in the dictionary says one thing. So when we say being level and intellect, just so we're on the same page, and it's probably redundant to do this, but I'm just going to say a couple things. Like, being level is like intuitiveness, right? We know logical process is intellect. Well, love is probably more being level. Apathy being more logical process. Being on vacation is like your being level. You stopped worrying about everything. You're here for the experience. Intellect is like the work week. You're thinking about everything, worrying about everything, taking everything home with you. Being level is understanding. Intellect wants to solve. Being level wants to experience. The intellect wants to expect, right? What else we got? It's like we all know the art and math thing, logical process. That's easy to go by. The being level is always honest. The intellect, well, not necessarily lying, it's tricky and forceful and makes you believe that what it sees, what it interprets, because that's all we're doing is interpreting reality, is it interprets that this is the best thing for you, and then you go do it. There was one more I wanted to make sure I said. Oh, yeah. Others, being level is feeling connected with others, yourself, as one, however anyone wants to look at that. And the intellect is more concerned about itself, and not in a necessary selfish way, but more just a self-serving way. And like Will said, and I agree, and for his metaphor of the yin yang, right? They both have pieces of each other because they are the same thing. To me, another metaphor is looking at it like on a degrees on a scale, like temperature. You know, hot is way different than cold, but they're still the temperature. So being level and intellect, they kind of need to be working together. Just the intellect is so powerful and has been trained. It has been working out in the gym of PMR for 20, 30, 40, 60 years, depending on it. And the being level has just been sitting there going, oh, when do I get a chance? Oh, only when you're sleeping? Only when you're in an emotive mood or when you want to connect with things? So we just have to start the awareness and then start changing and training our being level, training our intellect to step back. And one quick thing I'll say before I let Will go again is that for me, instead of getting rid of my intellect, like it's something I don't need, or it's like hampering me, I've tried to tell my intellect, and I think successfully, that, okay, if you're a supercomputer and you want all the information, well, there's information outside of your system that you don't have access to. And if you want to make the best possible decision for me, then you need all the information. And you know who can give you that? The being level. So you guys should be friends. So I've been training to let them be together instead of always forcing them out, because they are the same thing. We just have to see where they lie on the scale.
Awesome. So I had a couple other things that I wanted to just kind of add in there before we go into our first exercise. So I do need to give a shout out to fears. Okay, so look, all of this stuff that we're doing, all the meditation and all of the changing reality frames, the more fearful you are, the more it kind of like will put a spin on the ball. Okay, so it affects the information that you get because it affects your perception of the world. Okay, whether you're aware that it's affecting your perception of the world or you're not aware, it doesn't really matter. If you have a lot of fears, or if you have fears in general, then and really at the point of going out of body, if you have any fears, especially associated to changing reality frames, it will affect your experience. Okay, so Tom talks about it a lot, and he's absolutely spot on that, which is that getting rid of fears is a big step. It's not the only thing that you can do at that time, but it is a fundamental part of kind of anything that you're going to be able to do moving forward. Otherwise, the information that you get won't be good information. It will always be kind of steeped in whatever your own personal thing that you're going through is. And so if you want to take yourself out of the information, make sure that your information is good, the only way you can do that is to, the part of yourself that you need to take out of it is the fear part, because after that, the only thing that's left is your conscious intent, right? And so, and that's what you're really looking for. Now, Brannen said something about, how your mind is constantly running. So just to give you an idea of how much your being level kind of like runs the show all the time, and I think we all know this, but anytime, and we all do this on a regular basis, where you're thinking about something that you've thought about 100 times before, you don't have any new information, but you're just going over it again in your mind, this thing that happened to you in high school, or this experience that you had with a companion or a friend, and you're just going over it again and again and again. It just keeps going, right? And you're not learning anything new. You're just regurgitating this old information, and it just is running again and again. And so the thing is that even when you don't have anything to think about, okay, you don't have anything new, your mind still will just find something. It'll just start drawing things out. Hey, remember the last time your back hurt like this, and blah, 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 blah. And then you'll be thinking about that. And you'll think about how your dad's back hurt when you were a kid and blah blah blah. And it just goes like that. And so the goal is really to be aware of that, because people, there are other kind of people that will say observe your thoughts. Now, when they say something like observe your thoughts, what they're really saying is not just observe your thoughts, because when you're observing your thoughts, you are having an intent to not have that thought. So there's actually a little bit more to observation than people realize when they say that. But just being aware of the thoughts is enough for them to basically start to dissipate. Because when you're aware of them, you have a subtle intent to not have that thought, and that's actually a good thing. And so, but the first step is, of course, being aware of it, because if you're not aware of it, then you can't really change it. Okay, so another thing I want to talk about is coming back to fears and gut feelings. So Brannen mentioned something about gut feelings. So the body is basically like, in many ways, it's like a transformer for the things that we experience. So when you get upset and you feel it, and you feel it physically in your body, your upsetness, okay, that's good, because it gives you an indication of what's going on inside of your mind and inside of your spirit. You're like, I'm not mad, but then you feel like really tense in your body, or you feel like, a tightness in your chest or something. And then you have to be honest with yourself. You can't be like, well, if I wasn't mad, then I probably wouldn't have that feeling in my body. I actually am mad. On some level, this is very upsetting to me, or at least partially upsetting to me. I need to deal with that as a fear. But it's more than that, because your body, as you continue to kind of like get rid of your fears, and then you start working with other reality frames and all this other kind of stuff, your body continues to be kind of like a helpful symbol of what you're dealing with. And so you see that with things like, Kundalini and all that kind of stuff, where you feel the energy. That's just another way of the system interacting with you and giving you helpful feedback for, like where you're at that time. And so the only other thing that I wanted to say is that when we talk about the logical process part of your mind and then the being level part of your mind, it's really kind of a simplistic diagram that we're making here. There's really more parts of your mind if you think about it. Like, for example, sometimes your mind is talking to you and saying, you shouldn't go there or you should go here. But there's other times that your body's talking to you and it says, you need to go to the bathroom, but it doesn't use words. So whenever you have to go to the bathroom, how is your body communicating with you? How is it telling you that you need to go to, well, you need to go to the bathroom, but it's not using words, which means that your body has the ability to communicate with you without words, through feelings and through other things like that. So we're putting that more on the logical process part of the spectrum, okay? But I think that we could go through, and if we were to really discuss it, we were to dissect it, we would find that there was maybe 4 or 5 kind of more distinct ways of communication between you and the different parts of you, right? But for today, we're going to keep it really simple. We're just going to go being level and logical process level, and then just the other things like the feeling that you have to go to the bathroom and the other stuff. We're just going to put that on the side now, but just to be aware that that is a thing, right? And we're not ignoring it. It's just that it's not going to be particularly relevant for today's discussion. So before I go into the exercises, Brannen, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, you brought up something that triggered something, 2 quick things. All right, so Will brought up fear. And just to show how much, again, the yin yang or the degrees on a scale, like fear is a being level. It comes from the being level, right? Well, that the thing that it makes you be is the being level. But it's following your intellect like it's a leader. So that's the small part in the yin yang symbol. Your being level in the small part, like being a small part in the big intellect, right? It's almost like it's following it around because it's giving it solace in its fears. Like the fear being a raw being level product, now looking to the intellect to solve its problem of fear. Usually it's just creating more fears. So just to show how closely they are really related. And it's all about finding the nuances and intricacies of that. And one other thing I want to mention, and it has to do with intent, but also being level. I just want to speak on it for a quick second, is because we sabotage ourselves a lot of the time. So I call them macro and micro intents. So like just say you decide I'm going to have a conscious out of body experience now. We're going to call that the macro intent. You made the intent. Now remember, you can think about something without it being an intent. Thoughts are not intent, at least to me, in my opinion. Thoughts are thinking about the thing that you want to become an intent. So now you've thought about it, you bring it down, and it becomes a being level thing. I'm going to have an out of body experience. And in that moment, you're like, right after, you're like, yeah, I feel great. I'm going to do this. Oh, am I going to do it? I don't know, man. I don't know. I couldn't do it last night. All of a sudden, all these micro intents, things that we are unconscious of, that we have trained our whole lives again, start coming in and self-sabotaging our macro intents. And it sounds macro would be more powerful, but it's not, because micro intents, again, have been in the gym our whole life, working out in PMR. So we're sabotaging ourselves a lot of the time. And just to know, again, how closely related these two things that we're trying to separate are. And I just wanted to put that out there. So remember, I call it, or we call it, intending to intend sometimes, in a way. You need to be aware of all the little things that you may not even be thinking about. It's your subconscious thoughts, your unconscious thoughts, and the things that just are you, because that's the way you've thought. So we're going to train that to do a different way.
Why did you open up the intent can of worms, Brandon? We're trying
I
to do these. No,
I had to.
All right, so I'm gonna have to say something about intent too, even though this is a little bit of a digression, but from what we were going to do. But I think he's right. It is important. Okay, so when you have fears, or you have ideas, or you have thoughts, any thought that you have basically is an intent. Okay, whether you realize it or not, every single thought that you have in your day, and some of them aren't even thoughts. They're just like, oh, I feel melancholy. That melancholy feeling is actually an intent in its own way, right? And so what ends up happening with us is that all of these thoughts that we have basically create our experience that's around us. And then for people, all of us, because of our choices, we get painted into the corners of our own choices in life, right? And so you made all these choices, and now you're here, right? Or now you're there, and maybe you're happy with where you are, maybe you're not happy with where you are, but that's all based on all of these thoughts and all of these intents. And so really the whole discussion about what is intent, and which is I find it to be very complicated, but not complicated, because it's really kind of a being level feeling of what we're discussing. But at the same time, how to kind of like have an idea of what your intents are creating in the world and into the paradigm of your world is a very important thing, which we're not going to talk about today. We're going to continue, and we're going to continue on, and we're going to talk about that on another day. Otherwise, we're never going to actually get to these exercises that we're trying to do, which is to get you guys thinking about the being level and the logical process part of your mind. Did you have something else that you wanted to say? I'm not going to yell at you. It's going to be something about intent.
No, I only brought that up because to show that that your intents are both intellectual and being level. That's the only reason I brought it up, just to show that.
Right. So the being level and the intellectual level, you have the ability to think on both levels. Okay. It's not like you just think on one level and you can't think on the other level. It's just that one of them has a much better apparatus for logical process thinking, and the other one has a much better kind of like apparatus for like intuitive thinking, right? And so these two parts come together, and if you work with them really well, then you can do amazing things, right? But if they don't work really well, which what happens to most of us most of the time, is that one of them is really strong. It's like having huge muscles on this arm, and then this arm is just like really, really flat, like a checker with like an amazing arm, because they're always checking in this direction, you know what I mean? And then this arm is just normal size, right? And so what we're really trying to do here is to help you to kind of balance that out, because it helps you to be the best you. And I think that that's what everybody here wants, to be the best them, and that's what we're really trying to help you with today. So unless you got something else, I'm going to talk about the first exercise, which is the first memory. Okay, so Brandon and I, we kind of went back and forth and discussing it, because what we're trying to help you to understand today is we're trying to help you to understand what it feels like to be on the being level. Okay, because all of this stuff is that once you understand the feeling of it, consciousness isn't one of those things where the way that you find what you're trying to do in consciousness is by finding the feeling of that thing. And it's not the feeling of that thing, but it's very close, equivocally close to that. And so when we use these words, the words we use are towards abstract concepts. So it's not going to be the exact same thing, but the approximation of the feeling of that is very helpful, because if you can get to that place, then you can really understand what it is to be in the being level. So the way that we kind of decided that would be a really good way is to think about one of your earliest childhood experiences. Okay, so when you think about and we're going to do a little exercise together in a couple of minutes. But before that, I'm going to kind of explain to you where we're coming from with this. Okay, when you think about your childhood experiences, like let's say you think about yourself and you're running around the playground, and you're going down the slide, you're climbing up, and you're on the jungle gym bars, or what? I don't even think they have those anymore.
Jungle gym.
I don't think kids are on. But you're swinging on those bars or whatever it is you're doing. You're playing with your friends. When you think back to that time, you don't have a lot of logical process thoughts going through your mind. It's just you and the playground, or you and walking down the street, or you and patting the dog. And it's just this very kind of simple, not a lot of thoughts, not a lot of complexity, just you in that moment having that experience. That's what the being level is like. Okay? And so what we're trying to do, of course, is to find that being level that's inside of you. How do we do it? By showing you that you already know this being level. You've been working with it your whole life. It's not a new thing. It's just the realization that this is what you're really trying to be working on. Okay, so what we'd like to do, what I'd like to do right now is I kind of like for everybody to kind of close your eyes and relax and think back to a childhood memory. It could be your first memory. First memory is great, but if you think about that one a lot, then go to another childhood memory, because what ends up happening is that in your mind, your memory starts to change the memories as the more you think about them. So just think back to let's not overthink this. Let's just think back to a childhood memory of you in some sort of place. Okay, so we're just going to take a couple of moments, relax, and then go back to that memory. Okay, so now that we're here in this childhood memory, look around if you can in your mind. Look around you and look at how things, the walls or the floor or the people around you, look at how they look in your mind. How do they look? How do you see them? The experiences that you're having as you're walking along, what are the thoughts that are going through your mind? Are there any thoughts going through your mind? Or are you just in that moment? What does that feel like? Okay, so whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes and let's continue talking about it. So there you were, and I'm not sure about you because I don't even think I've even spoken to Brandon about this, but did the world around you feel a little hazy? The parts that weren't the parts that you were focusing on? Was everything absolutely clear? You know, the thing is that in a way, it's really because you're really in that moment. The things around you aren't as important as you in that experience, right? That experience is really about you being in that experience and having that experience. And so when you're trying to do these being level things, it's really about that. It's about having that experience, not having those thoughts, and just kind of being in that moment. Brandon, did you have something that you wanted to say?
Yeah, you bring up a great lead in for that. Being level being awareness, right? And intellect being kind of attention in a way. So, what Will was bringing up astutely, showing that you didn't care about all the details in that moment. You cared about the experience that you were having. Like I said before, the being level cares about experience, not expectation. And you were just there. Like all children, mostly, I mean, I guess I can only speak for me, but it seems to be what most people say. Like they haven't started self reflecting yet. They haven't started trying to protect their beliefs, their version of self, who people think they are. They haven't started that yet. We do that to them, the world, parents, everybody. It's just a thing that naturally happens. Um, but before that, they are just looking at things going, oh, whoa, and excitement, love, happiness, understanding, connectivity flows through them and they don't even know. And the only thing that they want next is more of anything. There's no what's next. They haven't experienced enough to know what's next. So they're just so happy to be there experiencing. There is no thought of what's next, or is this good for me, or how do I look doing this? I hope no one's watching me. What's going on inside their head? Why did they put this here? All of that is out the window because that's all your intellect. They just want to experience. And it's such a great, like, we all know that feeling. Bringing you back to a childhood memory, it's almost like being in a dream in a way because it's something that reminds you of your natural, true resting state. And then all the layers we've added on top of ourselves since those moments.
All right. So before we go on and try a different exercise, I just wanted to know if anybody had any questions or anything that they wanted to share.
Well, I did have one question. I don't know whether it's my intellect or whatever. Sometimes I do feel like I'm blocking myself to fully get into it. So I don't know whether because I work in a logical type of job and I work with computers and that I've always been logical rather than let my being side work or the right side of my brain work. So I don't know. Can that block you? Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. Look,
Yeah.
the whole thing is that 99% of your day is that logical process part of your mind. It's
Yeah.
basically in control, it's clamped down, it's got everything going. And so then you're like, okay, I'm going to be on the being level now. And then the logical process part of your mind's like, sure, let's go be on the being level. Let's go be on the being level together. And so the thing is that you don't even know where your being level starts. The logical process part of your mind is so strong that we don't even know where it is, right? And so the whole goal of what we're doing right now is to show you that you have a being level and what it feels like. Because once you understand, oh, that's what it is. That's where it is. Okay, I get it now. Now, what I'm trying to do when I'm trying to meditate is to get that experience or that feeling and the part of my mind that's running all day, I'm trying to get that to sit down. all right, sure. And so that is yes, absolutely. And so if you're anything like me, then
Yeah,
it's very, very strong and very, very dominant in your days, right?
yeah,
And so, and that's really absolutely the point. So if you didn't get that, that if you didn't, if that experience was a little bit tough for you to do, that's the reason why we went back to your childhood, is because you'll have a memory before that logical process part of your mind is dominant,
yeah,
right? You'll have memories like that. And those memories will help you to remember what your mind was like, what your mind state was like before the logical process part was running the show every minute of every day, right? And so that, but I absolutely and completely agree with you that yes, it's entirely possible that it is blocking you, but it's not blocking you because it's bad or because it's mean. It's blocking you because it's trying to help, and it thinks that it knows the best way of doing everything, including how to do the meditation and how to
yeah,
go on the being level. The thing is that it just doesn't, right? And so the whole you have to kind of get it to settle down and step to the side. And that's a whole process in and of itself, right? And so, really, that's when you're meditating, that's what you're doing. That's the whole meditation, is that and getting rid of fears. Those two things is everything that you're doing in meditation between now and forever, right? And so, once you get really good at that, then you can just turn it off. And then instead of it being the dominant part of your mind, it becomes a working part of your mind.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, cool.
Elise.
Yes, hi. I wanted to share the first moments when I closed my eyes to and try to go to a childhood memory. It was hard for me to, I don't know if I wanted to decide or I just thought, just come. And then just after that, many came. And it was like around where I lived and from different parts of my childhood. And they just came rushing like that. But was that my intellect or was it my being level?
I'd say it was your intellect at first, searching, like you said, looking for something. But once you found that, because it's easy to find your being level in a memory like that, is that you started basically recapitulating, and all of those things just start falling in. And that, I believe, is your being level having those moments. That's not your intellect searching. You have to actively search with your intellect. That's just that you're letting data come through that's always there, that the intellect takes up bandwidth of. So the being level doesn't get access to the data. Or that's actually not right. I'd say that it has access to the data always. It just never gets it to us because the intellect takes the data first and then twists it to its own way.
Well, I'm happy it didn't twist it because they really felt when I was there, but it was not always the same age. It was different ages. When I was 11 or 6 or like that. So yeah, well, that was really, really fun. Thank you.
But I will say that if you were jumping around like that, see, the thing is that the logical process part of your mind is trying to stay engaged in this exercise. And so, in going from one, oh, we're going to go to this point, and then we're going to go to this one, and then we're going to go to this one, that's a way that it can kind of still try to stay engaged in the experience without being in the experience. Because it can't follow if you were just one experience and that's just you as a little kid walking down the street. You know what I mean? Holding grandma's hand, you know, as you're walking down the street or whatever it is. It's hard for the intellect to really engage in that. So that's one of those subtle things where I'm pretty sure that it was your intellect really trying to continue
So
to run the show on
it's
that.
really tricky then. The
Yeah, no,
intellect
listen,
really
it
tricky.
is. It
Yeah.
is. It's very, very tricky, and it's very smart, and it knows you well. And then and we've all had this where you're meditating, you're getting into a really good place, and then you have this thought that you really want to think about. You're like, oh, you know, it's like your kryptonite. You're like, oh man, I really want to think about that. Okay, I'm going to think about it for a little while. Then I'm going to come back. Who knows your kryptonite? You know your kryptonite. It's the logical process part of you because it wants to think about something. And so it starts throwing things out there. It's like, okay, let's try this one. That'll get her on the line. She'll be interested in that. Oh yeah, no, she didn't like that one. Well, let's dangle this one down there, and that's what it does. It's just very good at basically getting us to kind of like follow along and engage with whatever it is that it wants to do, and it's just trying to help.
Yeah, that was really funny. It really felt like that.
Yeah. I've definitely been there. So absolutely.
Because remember, they're both so close too, that if we're going to start saying which is which way, that's the reason for this. That's the reason for exercises like this. So you can start to make that distinction yourself. Because me and Will can only, give you our metaphors and maybe say this is what we think, because only you are really going to know it. And if you can, and I say you will know it, because if you can keep exploring these intricacies, then you will be able to know on your own, and you won't have to ask if it was this or was that. You'll know.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good exercise. It helps already.
Good.
Thank you.
Before we go forward, I'm just going to answer a couple of these questions. So that I see in the chat. So if you have like negative feelings, or let's say you have fearful feelings that are coming up in your childhood. So, and this does happen. We all have pain points that that we have to deal with in our life. And so, if you're doing this exercise and then those pain points come up, then dealing with those pain points is more important than the being level exercise. You're not gonna be able to get around whatever it is that these initial things that you have to work through. And so if you do have painful moments in your childhood, it's okay to take those moments and to observe them and to be with them. That's one strategy for dealing with the painful moments. What I usually do is I usually actually would try more of like a healing approach on that, not so much the way that you guys are probably doing healing, but what I do is I think of a future probability where that pain no longer exists. Because we're consciousness, we have an idea that we need to follow things in a linear, that our minds work in a linear fashion, and as we grow and become wiser and become better and all these things, it has to happen in an incremental way, which isn't actually true. We are consciousness in the fundamental way, which means that we are already low entropy in our essence. And so if you can realize that, then you don't have to follow a slope. Oh, I'm getting lower entropy now. You can just be low entropy. You can just exist in that future probability where you are no longer have that fear or no longer have that pain. I'm not saying that is easy to do. It takes focus and intent. It takes meditation. But rather than trying to grapple these painful things, if you can basically have a focused intent on a future where that pain is not as strong or no longer exists, then you can be that future. All right. So I think we'll end up talking about that at a later course. But also, I certainly do have ways of meditating, but I think that that's also something that we'll have to talk about at a later course. BT,
yeah, quick answer.
Sorry, go ahead, Brad.
Just say a quick answer to that one is stop your internal dialogue is a great place to start. Just I'll leave it at that. Work on force stopping your internal dialogue.
Yeah. BT, is that Brad? Is that who that is?
Yeah, you betcha. Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to say what kind of parallels just what you talked about, really. And that's, working with people. For anyone here, there's a lot of us, and I know there's a lot of people that doing an exercise to go back to childhood. Don't be discouraged if you didn't get anything that seems to relate to a being level, because for many people, their first memories that they can find, and even a lot of early stuff, is not very being level. They've already, even by the time they get to speak, if they've had a very overbearing negative emotion kind of environment that they've started in life, it will be, they will be very self-conscious right from the get-go, and that part will already be have been quite strengthened even at the earliest times. So don't be too discouraged if an exercise like this didn't give you something like what you guys are talking about. Again, there's sometimes much to process, and everything is a journey, and everyone's journey is unique and individual. But don't let that discourage you. It's about starting to move down this intentional path. So parallels kind of what you were saying there too.
Right. And so these are just general ideas. You don't have to like look if any of these are hard or painful or difficult for you. You don't have to do these things. Like look, we came up with 3 ideas of how to basically help people know this thing on the being level, like what their being level was. That was one of them. Okay. And actually it's not even my favorite one. My favorite one is the 3rd idea, which I think is amazing. But that one is a little bit trickier, so we have to go through these other ones first before we can get to the 3rd one. And so hopefully we'll be able to get there. Brandon, did you have anything else that you want to say before we go to the dream exercise?
No, I think we're good. I'm glad Brad said what he said too, because that is the truth sometimes, and that's why again. Sometimes you can't connect with something, and that's okay, because you just have to shift your perspective to find something that you connect to. And that's just how we are as humans. We don't all connect to everything. So that's why, like Will said, we tried to bring 3 exercises because we know there's 50 different people here. How could one exercise make all of you happy? How could 2, right? The illusion of choice is 2. No, let's give them 3. At least that seems better. So, and do you want to should I go into this one, Will?
Yeah, so Brandon's he's going to be the one that's doing the dream exercise, and then I'll follow up with a couple of comments at the
end. Okay. All right, so we're going to do, hopefully, no, we will, no hope. Let's think, I assume for the most part that everyone's had at least one amazing dream in their life. The type that you never forget, the type that sticks with you. Could have happened last night, could have happened 50 years ago. You know what I'm talking about. So we're going to be using that as our anchor point in a way. So I want everyone to close their eyes, and we're going to wait about 20 seconds. Just take some deep, long breaths and hold them at your own pace. Just try to clear the mind and connect with the foundation that is you. Now, as we all take a look at our daily lives here in physical matter reality, we know how structured and how hard, how much thought and effort we put into things. Think of not even a problem, but something you're trying to overcome right now, or something that you had to overcome in the past, and how thinking about it didn't always help the situation. Like Will said earlier, just rehashing the same info. That feeling that you're stuck, or that you don't have control, and that you're a drop in the pan. That's the intellect pulling itself, telling you that you're an individual, that you're separate from everybody else. And we're all very familiar with that feeling right there. It's easy to connect to. Now, just want you to not engage with that feeling. We're not going to release it, because that means we're holding on to it. So we're just going to not engage with it. So I want you to re-clear your mind now. Stop that logical process. And now, from your feeling level, not your intellect, not your head, maybe from your chest, wherever you feel that that place is, your heart, bring up that feeling of excitement, of wonder, that dream that we talked about before, the one that just changed the way that you looked at dreams, the one that made you wake up and go, oh, I wish I was there. That feeling of excitement, of unending possibilities, of connectedness. And let that part sink into you. Feel the feeling. Don't think about the feeling. Feel it. Let it envelop you. Could be a warmth. It could be a tickle. It could be a cold. It could be understanding. And now, if you can, move that feeling up and try to bring that into your intellect. Try to make it work together. Because if you really notice, you can move feelings around your body and around places. They seem to culminate. And the being level for me seems to culminate not in my head as much. There's something different about the area of my chest and how it feels. And when we feel sadness, or not even sadness, but like melancholy in a way, or happiness, like where does it all come from? It's not in our minds. It's coming from here, at least some part of it, metaphorically. And then when you're done and ready, open your eyes with the intent of that feeling staying with you. And then try to keep that view instead of your intellect coming in and telling you everything. Just remember how awesome it was to be where you were, and that you can bring that feeling with you wherever you want at any time. And that is your being level. Whenever you're ready, open up your eyes. Now, we hope that that was a good one because, again, we've all been in childhood, but again, sometimes we can't connect because of our experience. So maybe this was another way, since we all have hopefully had dreams before that we remember, and those feelings, that thing right there, you were operating on the being level. In that dream right there, you were almost 100% being level. Your intellect didn't know what to do because it was also in awe, because they're so close together, yet so far apart. And it goes to that, it's like the childhood kid thing again. When you're in a dream like that, and that's the, if you can connect with that childhood feeling that we were talking about wonder, excitement, it's even just seeing, even if you had a bad upbringing, there's still got to be a moment of bright light where you saw something that made you smile, that made you be like, I have a zest for life. Those are those moments. Those are the moments that we have to focus on. And if you can feel those all through the day, those are available to you. It's a choice. And it's not about making the right choice. It's about realizing that you have one, right? There's no right or wrong choice. It's just realizing that it is a choice. So, Will, what would you like to say about that?
So this dream exercise that Brannen is talking about. Okay, so when we're in dreams, right, we spend hours a day, every day in these dreamlike states. And these dreamlike states are somewhere that the logical process part of your mind can't follow you there. Okay, so if you want to understand how to be on the being level, then what you're really trying to do is you're trying to recreate that dream state, but when you're awake. Because then if you're in that dream state, but you're awake, the logical process part of your mind is not engaged in that. So how do we do that? And so the way you do it is by understanding at first what it feels like. So you go to sleep and you dream every night. And then what happens? The first thing when you get up in the morning, what happens? Oh, I got to do this. Oh, I got to do that. Oh, I got to do this. Oh, I got to do that. All those thoughts start coming through your mind of the things that you got to do, or, oh, this thing happened last week. I've really got to take care of that. Or, oh no, I'm going to have a doctor's appointment. I'm really nervous about what's going to happen. All of these thoughts, they start rushing in your mind from that very first moment that you get up in the morning. But before that moment, you were on the being level for hours. So that's just to say that you know how to go on the being level. You know how to be on the being level without the logical process part of your mind dominating the whole thing. It's just that you don't realize that you know it because of the way that we live our lives. That would be the main thing that I wanted to say.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody else have any questions or anything, experience that they'd like to share before we move on?
I think for me it was that feeling in the gut. You know, when you're really excited, it was that feeling, getting that sort of thing, like getting that sort of zest that something exciting is going to happen. So
Yeah, like butterflies in the stomach
yeah,
type
that's
thing.
it. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
Yep, that is not your intellect.
Yeah.
I did have one other thing I wanted to say before. So Inga asked if she had an experience, if she can't find any experiences from her childhood, is monkey blocking that too? And the answer is probably. If you can't think of any experience from your childhood, a good one, a bad one, and second, if I say, who was your first grade teacher, you can't remember. What was a song that your mother sang you when you were a child, or your grandmother, or whatever it is, you can't remember any of that, then it's your intellect that is basically just controlling the show. And as it settles down a little bit, all of those memories are in there somewhere. There are memories, they just are, for whatever reason, your intellect is very effective in your days, but sometimes there's something that it kind of pushes out to have the maximum effectiveness. That can include memories. So I remember I was talking to my sister. She's even more logical processed than me. She's a law professor, and I was asking her. I was talking to her about maple syrup versus the other syrup, the stuff that's like the Aunt Jemima syrup, right? She's like, I've never tried that before, and I was like, what are you talking about? You've never tried? Well, you've never been to IHOP? Come on now, you've never tried that? She couldn't remember ever trying that syrup in her life. Why? Because the logical process part of her mind had just put it out because it just decided it wasn't a relevant thing. And so I think that can happen to us, especially those of us that are extremely logical process. Sorry, go ahead, Ron.
Of course, the problem with being at the being level is your sleep. So I find as soon as I'm in the theta band, I think I'm in the theta band, and I get a nice flow of consciousness, of dreamlike consciousness. I start to lose consciousness, and then my intellect says, "Wake up, be aware, follow this train," and then that's why it gets choppy. You chop out the being at the flow of the being level. So that's a problem for me.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying. So there's a couple of things that are going on here, which is that, yeah, you can fall asleep whenever you're basically not using the logical process part of your mind. That's entirely possible. It's also possible that that's just the logical process part of your mind convincing you that you should continue to engage with it. So the thing is that what they call that is they call that clicking out. Okay. Oh, he clicked out. And sometimes you'll do that because, you'll be in this fugue state between you're not in using the logical process part of your mind, but you're not really aware in the being level part, right? Because there's a we're talking about awareness in the being level. We're not talking about just being in that fugue state. And so if you find yourself there, then just give yourself permission to be there. Okay. That's part of your mind, just kind of like figuring out where it wants to be and what it wants to do. And if you're in that state, you find yourself, what we call clicking out, just let yourself click out. It's okay. All right. Now, later on, when you're rested, eventually you'll get to the point where you won't click out because you'll be fully rested. And then at that point, you will be able to go to the being level. But it can be a step for people that are trying to find their being level, that they end up in that place. Okay. Anybody else? Any other questions? Something you want to talk about, share before we move on?
Caroline just reminded me too that we are going to be doing these every month. So I think we have a tentative date for May 3rd for next time. I just wanted to say this before I forgot because time goes by fast. And when we all have to talk about this next exercise, we might not have time at the end. So I just wanted to say that.
So here's a question from Sunny. It says, how can one listen to you on a being level when you have to take it all on the intellectual level? So we're not actually asking you to listen to us on the being level per se. Like, look, the being level understands, just like when you're in a dream, you can understand people in your dream, right? You understand them fine. You don't understand them at the same way that you do whenever you're awake and engaged in the intellectual level, but you can understand people just fine with just your being level. What we're really trying to do is we're trying to help you to understand that that your being level has all these abilities too. You could go through your day and pretty much never use your intellect, or very rarely use your intellect, and live an amazing day and living an amazing life, right? You don't need, your being level or your intellect level is not fundamental to your existence and your ability to interact in your days. It's helpful if you use that. It's a good idea to use it because it will make you more successful in your career. It will help you to get more done rather than randomly wandering through the grocery store and then be like, oh, I should find something to eat for supper. And then, you end up going home with an avocado and a pack of hot dogs and then be like, well, I guess it's going to be a straight supper today. No, you want to go in with a list. You want to get all the things on the list. And so it's very helpful for that, but it isn't fundamental to using it in our days. Okay. And as a matter of fact, there are a lot of people that actually don't. Although when people don't tend to use their logical process part of their mind, we don't treat them very well in our society. We say, oh, they're scatterbrained, or they're flaky, or there's all these other things that we call them, right? But we don't say in a very reverent way, wow, they've learned how to not use the logical process part of their mind, because that's just not the world we live in, okay? But there are people that are doing that, and they're able to do that. And so, but for you right now, what you're really trying to do is just kind of get comfortable with the idea of being on the being level, because once you can actually, just like be comfortable and just you on the being level, you can actually just turn off that intellectual process part of your mind. And that's just a wonderful place to be, because you don't need anything. You don't need to be anywhere. You don't need to have anything. You are happy just being in that moment with nothing else. And it is a wonderful place to be. And I think that that's something that is really worth working towards, because an amazing thing.
Yeah, just a quick something about the opposite side of basically what you just talked about. We're always worried about bringing our being level to here, and we do say that we're on the being level always in dreams and out of bodies, which you are. It's the thing that's running the show, like the intellect runs here. But just to show the other side of the story, when you start going out of body, start dreaming, it's hard to think logically out there, right? Will, you can agree with me. It's hard to bring your intellect with you out there. Well, after 15, 20 years of going out of body, I can bring my logical process with me out of body and have full access to my PMR logically and still operate on my being level. But it's still there, which again, we're trying to show the nuances of how close these things are. But once you can separate them, it literally is the smallest separation. And once you find that crack, everything else, all of a sudden, the data flowing in makes sense on two levels instead of maybe one skewed or blurred one. So you can have it all both ways. It's just going to take time, practice, effort, belief, and determination and diligence.
So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the hypnagogic images. Okay, so for those of us that don't know what hypnagogic images are, or what they are, is basically whenever you're sleeping or you're nodding off to sleep, and then all of a sudden you start to see images in your mind as they're going. These are called, some people call it hypnagogic, some people call it hypnagogic, right? But these little images that will kind of like pop up in your mind. So what Brannen and I, we've been going back and forth on this, and we've kind of come up with a way of using that to basically help people to change reality frames. And so I don't think that we're going to be able to actually get into any exercises today, or I don't think so. But what I will do at least is I will kind of just like preface it and explain it a little bit. And then next week, we're probably going to, or next time, whatever that was, the 3rd of, did we say the 3rd of May? Is that what we said, Brannen?
Yes, I think it's a Saturday.
Okay. So the 3rd of May, next time we're going to basically go over that, and we're going to try to do some exercises toward this. But what you're trying to do in this particular case is that once you start having those hypnagogic images, it's basically it's a place where your logical process part of your mind can't really fall. It's kind of like it's starting to settle down, and it's not really following through. And so what we're going to do is we're going to basically create something that's like a hypnagogic image, which is imagination, and then we're going to use that to kind of give you a feeling of what the being level is. And so the way you do that is that you'll imagine something like, let's say you imagine like a golf ball, and then you'll just focus your mind on that golf ball. And so the part of your mind that's focusing on that golf ball is the logical process part of your mind. It's the same part that basically goes and starts counting sheep, right? Because what is counting sheep? Why do people count sheep when they're going to sleep? They're counting sheep because they're trying to distract the logical process part of their mind so that the rest of them can basically go to sleep. You want something that's just interesting enough to keep the logical process engaged, but not interesting enough to keep you awake, right? And so concentrating on it doesn't have to be a golf, it could be anything, right? But I just say golf ball because golf ball is a big white clunky block, right? Just concentrating on that, and then allowing other thoughts and ideas to swirl around that in your own consciousness and in your own mind will give you an idea of all of those other things around the golf ball that you would see or that you would feel, or you'd be like, oh, I feel like there's something out there. I feel like there's something moving, right? All of that stuff is being level. That's all the being level things. Eventually, what you're really going to be trying to do is you'll look at that golf ball, and then you'll basically try to not have any thoughts and keep your eyes on the golf ball, but not engage with any thoughts. And if your mind starts to try to move around, oh, what was that? What was that? You go back, you look at the golf ball, because you can still in the periphery, because you're not seeing any of this stuff, okay? So what do it's more like you're feeling it, but you're feeling it with your eyes. So if I say to you, just to give you an idea, because this is very big. So if I say, imagine somebody that you love. They don't have to be alive. It doesn't have to be a person. It can be a dog or a cat or an iguana. It's just somebody that you love. So just for a moment, and I'll just do this very quickly. So close your eyes. Imagine somebody that you love in your living room. Okay? They're right in front of you in your living room. And then I want you to take that person and grab that person with your two hands and then move them over into the bathroom. Okay? Now, what are you looking at them with? You're not looking at them with your eyes. What are you looking at that person with? So we have to have a descriptor for this. So let's call that you're looking at that person with your feelings, right? And so that means that you can see people with your feelings. Now, we don't have to use the word feeling. We can call it anything. But for our purposes today, we're going to call it looking at that person with their feelings. And so that's helpful because it helps you to understand that you don't have to use the visual part of your mind to see things, right? And so when we go through these exercises, you can realize that it's not your mind that's seeing them. It's what's happening is that you're receiving information and then your mind is processing that. And some of the stuff that it's processing it in is into visual data. And some of it that it's processing it in is in emotional data, right? And so what we're really trying to do here is we're trying to help you to understand how you're receiving this information and what it actually means for you. Because a lot of times when people think, oh, I want to change reality for you to go out of body, they think that it's going to be exactly like it is whenever you're looking around with your eyes. And it can be, but it can also be a lot of other things too, right? And so being open to receiving information in different ways is important, because if you have an idea in your mind, a belief of what it's going to be and how it's going to work, then you're kind of limiting yourself in what you can actually do, because your belief is affecting your future probability. Your thoughts are affecting your future probability and your ability to interpret information, right? So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to really kind of like get you to claw back on the beliefs and then to just be in that moment. And then whatever comes in that moment, then you take that and you run with it. And be like, oh, that's weird. All I did is I felt something. I didn't see anything. I just felt something. It felt like I was patting a dog, but there was no visual at all, right? And that's fine too, because there's lots of ways of receiving information. It's just that because we receive information through our eyes and ears, we have an idea that that's the only way to do it. And that's really not true, okay? There's lots of other ways of getting information. And so for what we're doing today, you're not going to be getting information through your eyes and ears, right? This being level information, you're getting information through consciousness, through a whole other thing that will not feel like eyes and ears. Now, you can be in there and then you get that information and it feels like it's coming through your eyes and ears, just like you have a dream and it feels like it's coming through your eyes and ears when you talk to people, but it's not coming through your eyes and ears. It's just information. Did you have anything that you wanted to add, Brannen?
Yeah, just about, Will brings up some great stuff, and like the hypnagogic image thing. We have been going at this for almost a year now, I'd say, probably, about the hypnagogic image thing. And I haven't really heard anybody else talk about it online, about how this is, and we said we weren't going to talk about techniques as much because it's really not about the technique, but this is an interesting one. That we are going to run out of time, but for next time, that will be the topic, and it will be, I think, again, everyone's probably had hypnagogic images, and when you see them, they go away, right? They're tricky. Oh, what's that? Well, that's your intellect jumping in, saying, hey, what's that thing? Oh, it's gone. Because, like Will said, it was sitting down, just about to fall asleep. And then something came in, and the being level, being able to access that data all the time, was like, oh, okay, I'm letting this in. That data is already there. And then it's our belief that maybe that isn't actually like in our minds. We see that as a doorway. It is a doorway to add a body to another reality frame. So for next time, it'll be a good one.
It's okay. So we got a couple minutes before we leave today. Does anybody have anything, comments or questions? So I would say that I think that what we'll do also is that we're going to send you guys kind of a little email, or if you have any ideas of topics that are important to you that you want us to cover over these courses that we're doing, let us know, and then we'll work up a course around your ideas. And so you should expect to get something in an email later. Jim.
Hey, hi everybody. Thank you guys so much. I just wanted to give a quick shout out and say thank you so much for this information and this getting together and doing this, because I've been working on it for a lot of years now, and I thought it was to no avail until I'm listening to you talk. Maybe I'm farther along than I thought and don't even know it. But yes, thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you, Jim. That's kind words. And remember, it's not adding. We all have the tools, because in my opinion, it isn't adding anything. We got to subtract a lot of stuff. That's what we got to do.
Yep.
Also, somebody made a comment saying that they don't remember their dreams, and I think that yes, that is probably true unless you make a focused intent to remember your dreams. And so you need to start doing things like thinking about, oh, I'm going to remember my dreams. I'm going to remember my dreams, and then the first thing you do when you get up, what was the dream that I just had? And then you
Journal.
keep doing that. And after a period of months, you will start to remember your dreams, because your consciousness, and you can change your future probability so that you remember your dreams. But it takes time. And so it's something where if you're not remembering your dreams, that's something that you might want to work on, because it shows a higher level of awareness when you're sleeping. And that higher level of awareness will also help you with your meditation. Okay. So I would like to, before we go, could everybody just say thank you to Caroline? Thank you for setting this up. Brannen and I, we might seem fun, but we're not the easiest people to work with since we're all over the place. It's like herding cats. And so thank you, Caroline, for making this happen. And
thanks,
Caroline.
We do really appreciate
Yes, Caroline, thank you. Thank you so much. You saved me.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Caroline. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you,
Coming,
Caroline.
and it really supports
And
what
thank
we
you, guys.
do. And, like, it really helps us sustain the platform and offer also free events. So also your contribution helps so much. And I'm really grateful that there was so much interest, and so grateful for Will and Brannen willing to do these things for us, because I think it's so important for us to learn these techniques, to really get the experiences and finally create our own toe, right? Not be dependent on Tom anymore, but really experience for ourselves what's available out there. So I'm really looking forward to see all of you back in May, 3rd of May. I already created the event, and yeah, stay tuned. There are a lot of free workshops coming up also next week, and the remote viewing is also something that's quite exciting. So yeah, see you soon.